While you're clipping coupons, they're clipping dollar dominance. You feel smart saving 50 cents at the grocery store. You proudly scan discount apps. You track your cash back. And it's all done in dollars, the same dollars you were told would always be safe, strong, and stable. Meanwhile, half a world away, the largest economies are cutting that same dollar out of their deals. Brazil and China sign trade agreements without touching the greenback. Russia dumps U.S. reserves. Saudi Arabia starts accepting payments in yuan. And what do most Americans do? They keep printing grocery coupons while the world prints a new playbook. That's not a metaphor. It's a gap, a delay, a trap. You're playing defense in a game that's already moved to another field. The era of the dollar as the unchallenged global reserve currency is quietly fading, not in headlines, but in backroom deals, bilateral trade pacts, and silent gold movements. And the people reshaping this game? They're not broadcasting it. They don't need to. They just need you not to notice. The truth is, this isn't a crash. It's a reset, and not the kind you're invited to. While you watch the CPI report and worry about eggs getting expensive again, the real value is being shifted upstream. Into assets, commodities, and influence. You were taught to be a saver, a coupon clipper, a careful planner. But that training kept you inside the old system, while the next one builds without you. 5 nations just challenged the dollar, and nobody rang the alarm. While the average American was watching gas prices and mortgage rates, 5 of the world's largest emerging economies quietly agreed on something that should have made headlines in every household. They don't want the dollar anymore. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, BRICS. Together, they represent over 40% of the global population and nearly a third of global GDP. And instead of trading with each other in US dollars, they're building their own currency, reportedly backed by gold or other real-world assets. No middleman, no Washington, no Wall Street. This isn't a minor development. It's a seismic shift. For decades, the dollar wasn't just a currency. It was a weapon, a filter, a throne. It forced the world to trade on America's terms. Oil, dollar. Loans, dollar. Sanctions, dollar. But BRICS just said, we're done. And they're not alone. More than 20 other countries have applied to join the bloc, eager to escape a system where one nation prints the world's money while the rest hold the risk. Ask yourself, if a third of the world decides to stop playing your game, what happens to your scorecard? What happens to your savings? Your safe retirement funds? Your stable cash reserves? They don't collapse overnight, but they start losing the privilege they were built on. The privilege of being trusted. The privilege of being needed. And still, most Americans shrug it off. That's geopolitical. That's far away. But geopolitics is the scaffolding of your paycheck. When BRICS reshapes trade routes, oil deals, tech agreements, your dollar doesn't just weaken, it becomes less relevant. The entire premise of your economy, that people will always need your currency, gets rewritten. The financial world has already begun to reposition. Central banks are buying gold. Sovereign funds are diversifying out of treasuries. Trade flows are moving east and south, not west. But on Main Street, USA, the belief in the dollar remains almost religious, unquestioned, inherited, absolute. And that's exactly how empires fall, not with an explosion, but with a collective yawn. If gold is old-fashioned, why are central banks buying more of it than ever before? For decades, the narrative was clear. Gold is dead weight, old-fashioned, a thing of the past, carried by doomsday preppers and conspiracy theorists. You were told that the modern world belongs to stocks, bonds, ETFs, and digital assets, that the shiny metal collecting dust in vaults has no place in a modern portfolio. You believed it. Why wouldn't you? That's what every bank, every broker, every expert on TV repeated. Meanwhile, something extraordinary was happening behind the curtain. Central banks, the very institutions that manage the global flow of fiat currencies, began quietly buying gold again. Not a few coins here and there. We're talking about thousands of metric tons. In 2022 alone, official central bank gold purchases reached levels not seen since 1967. The biggest buyers? China, India, Turkey, Uzbekistan, Russia. What do they know that you don't? They know the end of a cycle when they see one. When trust in paper money begins to erode, slowly, then all at once, nations don't buy more bonds. They buy what's real, what can't be printed, what can't be devalued at the stroke of a key. They buy gold, and yet you're told to ignore it. Why? Because if retail investors began piling into gold the way institutions have, it would disrupt the delicate illusion. The illusion that fiat is stable, that inflation is transitory, that government debt doesn't matter, the illusion that the system is under control. But gold has no loyalty to illusions. It doesn't yield interest, doesn't respond to policy, doesn't care about GDP. It just sits, quietly, storing value across centuries, immune to elections, headlines, and software glitches. And maybe that's the threat. Because in a system designed around credit, expansion, and digital control, gold represents something dangerous: independence. You can hold it in your hand. No password, no biometric ID, no approval. That's why gold isn't being phased out. It's being reserved, just not for you. It's being moved into sovereign vaults, not retail portfolios. The media tells you it's irrelevant. But if that's true, why are the biggest financial players in the world racing to secure more of it? There's a quiet repositioning happening, a realignment of value, from digits to weight, from speculation to substance. And by the time you realize gold wasn't dead, just hidden, it may already be priced out of your reach. They let crypto run wild, just long enough to understand how to control it. For years, the rise of crypto looked like a financial revolution, a counterculture of coders, libertarians, and renegades challenging the traditional banking system. Bitcoin was freedom. Ethereum was innovation. Millions poured in, chasing the dream of decentralization, the idea that you could own, move, and store value outside the grip of governments and banks. And while the public saw chaos, the institutions saw a lab. They didn't try to shut it down. Not really. Not when it mattered. They let it grow. They let it fail. They watched the bubbles inflate and burst. And all the while, they were taking notes, observing the tech, the behavior, the vulnerabilities, and, most importantly, the psychology. Because crypto wasn't just a rebellion, it was a live experiment. Now look around. The Wild West is being fenced. Central banks, the same ones that told you crypto was dangerous, are building their own version of it. Only this time, there will be no anonymity, no self-custody, no freedom. Enter the CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. The same blockchain-inspired structure, but with total oversight. Every transaction traceable, every coin programmable, every user identifiable. Unlike Bitcoin, you won't be able to hold it in cold storage. Unlike Ethereum, you won't be able to build on it freely. It won't be decentralized. It will be centralized to the decimal. And while you were cheering the fall of crypto scams and regulations to protect investors, they were preparing the real rollout, not to liberate money, but to lock it down in ways fiat never could. They don't fear blockchain. They fear it without control. CBDCs solve that. With one platform, they can simulate cash, monitor movement, set expiry dates, and restrict spending categories. Imagine stimulus that disappears if you don't use it in 30 days. or funds that can't be spent on unapproved vendors. That's not a theory. That's already being tested in China, Nigeria, and quietly in Western pilot programs. Crypto taught the world a new language of value, but it also handed the system a manual on how to build a smarter cage, because the goal was never to stop crypto, it was to absorb it, then use it to tighten the net. The next version of money won't need paper, it won't need metal, and it definitely won't need your permission. You log into Chase, they move assets to Singapore. You think you have access. You think logging into a banking app means control. You see a number on your screen. A digital promise that your money is there. But that's not ownership. That's permission. And permissions can be changed. Most people have their entire net worth tied to platforms they don't control. Checking accounts, 401ks, brokerage apps. But look closer. You'll find terms and conditions that let banks freeze, delay, or restrict your access at any moment. Ask Canadians who donated to the wrong cause. Ask Cypriots in 2013 when withdrawals were suddenly limited. Your money is not where you think it is. Meanwhile, the truly wealthy, the architects of this system, are not logging into apps to check balances. They're not saving in dollars. They're moving capital, quietly and globally. They own real estate in Lisbon, gold in Swiss vaults, holding companies in Dubai, cold wallets in Singapore, citizenship by investment in the Caribbean. Their wealth moves offshore, off-chain, off-grid. And what are you doing? You're tracking your weekly budget in a fintech app that sends alerts when your Starbucks purchase exceeds expectations. That's the gap. While the middle class seeks convenience, the elite pursue sovereignty. You've been told that accessibility is progress. But true wealth doesn't ask for access. It builds escape routes. It doesn't wait for approval. It eliminates the need for it. This is not about tax loopholes or evasion. It's about infrastructure. A parallel system where money is not just stored, but shielded. Where risk is spread across jurisdictions, where value is not bound to one currency or one regime. So, while you're counting rewards points and celebrating a new credit limit, they're acquiring energy, land, infrastructure, digital assets, tools of leverage, not liabilities of lifestyle. The real currency isn't numbers on a screen. It's mobility, flexibility, redundancy, options. The system taught you to value comfort, but the people who win long-term value escape. And they've already left the building, quietly, legally, strategically. You see rising prices. They see a debt eraser. Every time you complain about gas, groceries, or rent getting more expensive, you're witnessing something bigger than market shifts. You're witnessing policy in action, not a failure. A feature. Inflation, to most, feels like a storm that came out of nowhere. A glitch, a side effect. But to governments and central banks, it's a lever. When national debt is measured in the tens of trillions, there are only a few ways out. Raise taxes, unpopular. Default, unthinkable. Or quietly shrink the real value of that debt by letting your dollar buy less. So when your paycheck stays the same, but milk costs 40% more, that's not economic chaos. That's strategic erosion. It doesn't affect everyone equally. If you're living off cash, wages, or fixed income, you feel every tick upward. But if you're sitting on hard assets, real estate, commodities, equity, inflation becomes a tailwind. Your liabilities shrink. Your assets inflate. The system rewards those who borrow and buy. It punishes those who save and wait. That's why the wealthiest people are not panicking. Inflation burns the middle, not the top. And still, you're told to cut expenses, tighten your belt, clip more coupons. But no one tells you that the game is being rigged in real time by those who control the printing press. The irony? While you try to save more in dollars, those dollars are evaporating. This isn't about conspiracy, it's about incentive. Governments owe too much. Corporations want cheap debt. Central banks need movement. And you? You've been trained to believe stability is holding cash, when stability was redefined while you weren't looking. They don't fear inflation. They use it. You put money in a savings account. They put it in strategy. You were taught that saving is responsible, that a dollar not spent is a dollar earned. So you tuck it away, in savings accounts, CDs, retirement plans. You feel virtuous. You feel safe. You see that balance on your app and think, I'm doing the right thing. But while your dollars sit, they decay. Quietly, relentlessly. Meanwhile, those with power don't save. They allocate. They don't wait for interest. They create velocity. Their money moves through assets, businesses, networks, and jurisdictions. Because they know a truth that no one ever taught you. Cash is not wealth. Ownership is. You save for security. They buy leverage. You fear losing what you have. They focus on controlling what they build. While you put $500 a month into an account that earns 1%, they buy equity in companies that generate 20%. They buy farmland that produces food, property that collects rent, startups that scale. Their money doesn't rest. It compounds. And you're told that's too risky. But what's the real risk? Earning less than inflation for 20 years? Having your safe savings devalued by a crisis you didn't cause? Trusting a system that's shifting beneath your feet, while telling you to stand still? The painful truth: they profit from your patience, from your belief in safety, from your loyalty to a game that was never built for you to win. Because every dollar you save, they borrow and multiply. Every year you delay investing, they acquire another stream of income. Every time you wait for the right moment, they create one. So you keep saving, and they keep buying power with the dollars you gave up. When the currency resets, it won't ask if you're ready. There won't be a siren, no announcement on the news, no breaking headline that says, "Today, the system changed," because it already is. Quietly, precisely, irreversibly. The dollar that once ruled the world is now one of many. While everyday people hope for stability, the global elite are repositioning, shifting into commodities, private equity, decentralized assets, and alternative markets. They don't argue about inflation. They act. They don't wait for permission. They anticipate. And you're told to trust, to keep your savings, to wait it out. But what you're really being asked to do is stay still while the ground beneath you is moving. This is not a conspiracy. This is structure. You weren't invited to the currency reset because you're not supposed to benefit from it. You're just expected to absorb it. Think about it. If tomorrow your bank limited withdrawals, your currency changed rules, or your assets were frozen for regulatory reasons, how much control would you really have? That's the endgame. Total traceability, programmable money, centralized permissions, and all of it justified by one word: convenience. But freedom is not convenient. It's proactive. It's informed. It requires you to think like a builder, not just a consumer. Because when the system changes, your silence becomes consent. So don't just hold cash. Hold clarity. Don't just save. Prepare. The new economy is already here. It just hasn't knocked on your door yet. And when it does, the question won't be, "What happened?" It'll be, "Were you ready?"